great time for us. Minister Hussein is working hard on the mandate he's given, and tirelessly he's working to deliver all Canadians what promises we made in the campaign. And I would be happy to join with my team, Raj Grewal from Brampton East, Kamal Khera from Brampton West, Ruby Sota from Brampton East, and Ramesh Sangha from Brampton Centre. I would like to call them to join with us. And we are working in one team, very strong team. And today we are here, and we want welcome to Minister Hussein, and I'm happy to thank Mayor Jeffrey to host us today. She's working very hard, and then always there for us when we need it. And I'm just calling my colleagues to come here, and I want to invite Minister Hussein, and let's give him big applaud and warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by saying bon matin, merci. It's great to be back in Brampton. This is my third time as minister coming back to Brampton. I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Ramesh Sangha, Ruby Sahota, Kamal Khera, Sonia Sidhu, and Raj Grewal. It's also an opportunity for us to be in the presence of our worship, Mayor Linda Jeffrey, who's a personal friend. It's great to be back in Brampton. This is a great community. When I look at this City Hall, I'm reminded of the importance of civic institutions like this one to communities, and this is a space that is a symbol of civic life in Brampton. And for those who have come from other parts of the world to make Brampton their home, whether it is that skilled immigrant who's come to Canada from Chandigarh, whether it is that young woman from Pakistan who's come to Canada to join her partner in Canada, the international student from Beijing, China, or the caregiver from the Philippines who's now in Brampton. All of them look to places like Brampton City Hall and feel and hope that they can one day belong to spaces like this. And in their effort to do that, they look to Canadian citizenship. And they long to join the Canadian family by obtaining Canadian citizenship and taking that oath of citizenship. And each one of you who has had the opportunity to be part of the Canadian family by taking the oath of citizenship and becoming a Canadian citizen knows how deeply touching that moment was for you. I certainly remember 15 years ago when I took my oath of citizenship, how moving it was for me to finally join the Canadian family. And in addition to that personal feeling, it's also a really important community feeling because, as we know, Canadian citizenship is the last step in the integration of newcomers to our society. But something happened in the last number of years, whereby the previous government had deliberately put obstacles, real barriers to citizenship for permanent residents who were genuinely seeking to join the Canadian family and to also be fully integrated into our society. And those barriers were unnecessary. They prolonged people's steps to join the Canadian family. They made it really hard, put undue pressure on young applicants, for example, and older applicants, and just made it really difficult, for example, to accumulate the physical presence requirements. And that is why today I'm very pleased to announce that we're making the important changes in Bill C-16 that have been long awaited by permanent residents. Permanent residents have been waiting for these changes for a long time. And they were eagerly awaiting these changes for the very reason that I spoke about earlier, which is that they wish to be part of our Canadian family. So today I'm pleased to announce that those long-awaited changes in Bill C-6 will come into force next week as of October the 11th. And the first part of that change that will come into force next week is the physical presence requirements for citizenship. Under the old system, you had to be physically present in Canada for 4 out of the last 6 years before you apply for citizenship. Under Bill C-6, coming into force next week, October the 11th, as of October the 11th, you will be required to be physically present in Canada for 3 out of the last 5 years before you apply for citizenship. That is really important because it will mean that many, many permanent residents will be able to apply for citizenship earlier, and it will mean that their path to citizenship will be eased and they can join our family sooner. In addition to that, we are also ensuring that the requirement to be in Canada for a consecutive number of days each year, 183 days, was causing real hardship for a lot of applicants, and we're getting rid of that requirement as well. That means permanent residents can be free to travel outside Canada for study, family reasons, or work reasons, and then come back and still be able to accumulate the necessary number of days before they become eligible for Canadian citizenship. The second step that we're taking that will come into force on October the 11th as part of our changes is the number of days that people have spent in Canada prior to becoming PR. Prior to our changes, you could be in Canada for a number of years as an international student, as a visitor, as a worker, or as a protected person. And those days will not count towards your physical presence requirements. And that was unfortunate because we know that people start to form an attachment to Canada prior to even becoming permanent residents. So as part of the changes that will come into force on October the 11th, temporary workers as well as protected persons who are in Canada will be able to count half days for a number of days that they were in Canada prior to applying. And so within a 5-year period, they can count half days for up to 1 year, for up to a maximum of 1 year, as part of their physical presence requirements. So for example, if an international student has been here for a number of years, they can potentially accumulate 1 year prior to becoming a permanent resident, and then would have to wait for only additional 2 years before they apply for citizenship. The next step that we're also making sure that comes into force on October the 11th is the age range for language and knowledge requirements for citizenship. This is a particularly important point that we heard from the community. Children under 18 years of age faced undue pressure to take the citizenship test. And this was a problem because in addition to studying for the citizenship test, they had to also study for their regular school exams. We didn't feel that this was a reasonable requirement to place on these young potential Canadians. And as such, we're getting rid of that requirement and making sure that we return the age range for knowledge and language requirements back to 18 years to 54 years of age. Older Canadians who are older than 54 years of age will also not have to demonstrate language knowledge and also requirement for the citizenship test. Finally, you have to file Canadian income taxes for the last 3 years out of the last 5 years, which matches the new physical presence requirements. This is to put that requirement in line with the new physical presence requirements that's coming into force on October the 11th. And so that's another change that we're making. So ladies and gentlemen, the whole point of these changes is to make sure that the unnecessary barriers and obstacles that were put in place on the path to citizenship for permanent residents is removed. We want all permanent residents in Canada to become Canadian citizens. That's our wish because we value Canadian citizenship. We understand that we are a community that continues to welcome people from all over the world. We understand the importance and the positive role that immigrants play in our economy, in our society, and in our cultural life. And as such, we want all permanent residents to eventually join the Canadian family. And we have a responsibility to ease their path to Canadian citizenship. Canadian citizenship is not only meaningful to those individuals. It's also important to us as a government because we realize that obtaining citizenship is the last but most crucial step in integration. And as a country that's committed to the settlement and integration of newcomers successfully so that they can restart their lives and make contributions to our society, we have to ensure that we ease the path to citizenship for permanent residents. And that is why with these changes, with the ease of the physical presence requirements, for example, and the flexibility that we are introducing to those requirements means that permanent residents will be able to apply for citizenship sooner, but they'll also be able to have the flexibility to do so, because some of those barriers were making it virtually impossible to accumulate that time. And I know for a fact that a lot of permanent residents have been eagerly waiting for these changes. That is why I'm very proud to join my colleagues today to deliver on a key campaign commitment, because Bill C-6 was central to our campaign plank, which is about integrating newcomers, making sure that we ease the path to citizenship and remove those unnecessary barriers that were put in place by the previous government. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. Now we're going to begin the question and answer period. Just a reminder that question and answers are for media only. And our first question is from Fairchild Television.
Hello, Minister Hussein. I have a question related to the current recent news, and it's about there has been reported that the suspect of the terror attack in Edmonton, and he has been deported from the U.S. government, and he entered Canada to apply for refugee. Do you have knowledge about this, and what's your reaction?
What I can confirm to you is that the individual came to Canada, to our border in 2012. He came to an official port of entry. He requested asylum from Canada. He went through the regular process at that time, and he was granted refugee status later that year. Details I will not comment on because this is an active and ongoing investigation, and I want to make sure that we let the professionals do their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, our next question is from the Canadian Press, and it's over here.
Thank you, sir. Can you confirm whether he came directly from the U.S. and at which port of entry? Can you confirm anything about that?
I can confirm to you that he came to an official port of entry, claimed asylum, went through the process, and was granted asylum later in 2012.
Are you worried about any blowback for the Somali community as a result of this?
We always make sure that communities are resilient. Our policy as a government has always been to make sure that with the resilience of communities, and that is why we invest heavily in making sure that communities feel welcome in our country, that they feel included in our social and political life. And that is the whole approach that we've had across our government in various departments.
Minister, the next question is from the CBC, but before we continue, I just want to remind colleagues that we're going to go one question each outlet to start, okay?
Hello, Minister. I understand that the situation with the Edmonton suspect is under investigation, but what is the government's official position on somebody who has a deportation order from the United States and is claiming refugee status in Canada?
It's important to note that anyone who claims asylum in Canada, whether it is at an airport or at a border crossing, it has to go through the rigorous processing that we have in place. Once they're deemed to be eligible to even make a refugee claim, because not everyone is eligible to make a claim, but once they're deemed eligible to make a claim, they are referred to the arm's length independent adjudicatory body known as the Immigration and Refugee Board. That board is the one that is responsible to determine the merits of each and every case when it comes to asylum claims.
We have time for one more question. Is there somebody else who would like to ask a question? No? Okay, seeing no questions, then that... oh, I'm sorry, there is a question on the other side. Hang on. Just let me get over there and I will give you the mic. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Can you say the name of your outlet, please?
Good morning, honorable members, Mr. Minister. My name is Ziad Malawi. I'm the president of the Jordanian Canadian Society. And as you know, Jordan has been hosting millions of refugees from neighboring countries. And as a result, it created a lot of hardship on Jordan. Some Jordanian Canadian here would like to sponsor their own Jordanians here, and there is a backlog of 2 more years or more, and we have a few more cases here. I'm sure it happens with other people, but is the minister intending with the new process to hire more people to expedite the backlog cases of the sponsorship who are coming here to work legally and produce to this country and pay taxes, not burden on the taxpayers or the government, rather on the sponsorship?
Okay, good question. Private sponsorship of refugees is a really great program that is very unique to Canada. No other country in the world sponsors refugees privately and harnesses the power of individuals to do so. We've been a model to the world, and now actually other countries are studying how our model has worked for over 4 decades. And in fact, the United Kingdom has now adopted a version of the Canadian program, which they're calling the UK Community Sponsorship Program. Our government, when we came in, we inherited a very large backlog that was irresponsibly left to grow by the previous government. We've taken the approach that, in consultation with the SAR Council, to make sure that we increase the number of spots available for private sponsorship. And for the first time in modern Canadian immigration history, the number of allocations this year for private sponsored refugees is actually larger than the government sponsored refugees. We've almost quadrupled the number available compared to the previous government. So we're doing what we can. My predecessor as immigration minister, the Honorable John McCallum, used to say that he's the only immigration minister in the world who cannot bring enough refugees to meet the demand of his citizens. So that's actually a good problem to have. It shows the amazing generosity and the depth of feeling about this issue with the Canadian public. And we've tried to meet that demand by almost quadrupling the numbers. If there is a sense and a desire to do more, we will certainly listen to that desire. And that is why I've been moving around the country consulting with various stakeholders on this and other issues with respect to immigration and refugee policy since April this year. And I hear this sentiment all the time, and we'll see what we can do with respect to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. That concludes our question and answers for today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.